Clarinetist and composer Benjamin Cousins grew up in New Orleans, started music early.
I played piano as a child, and then when it got to middle school, I it was time to pick an instrument. So I chose the clarinet. My grandfather was an avid music listener, and Pete Fountain was one of his big artists. So the sound of clarinet was always in my ear at a young age. I loved music as a kid. It for me was always a place of exploration and dreaming. So I loved music, and piano was something that I was very passionate about. I was ready for lessons every week.
Oh.
But I think part of me with brass band culture always wanted a mobile instrument, right? So that I could enjoy the community.
Jazz and improvisation seriously entered Ben Cousins' musical world in his early teen years.
At 14 years old, I decided to start pursuing the improvised lineage of music from New Orleans. And I early on joined the Preservation Hall Junior Jazz Band. And I was the last 2 years of that program. And then I was also doing Satchmo Jazz Camp.
Oh.
So through those two programs, I was studying earlier forms of the music and really fell in love with the music of Sidney Bechet. And he really is a core to my sound, his woodiness, his vibrato, his wideness, his darkness. And later, through Jazz Heritage Foundation, New Orleans Center for Creative Arts, working with the great Kid Jordan and Gregory Agid, I became knowledgeable of the music of Alvin Baptiste. And from that point forward, I dedicated myself to learning a more contemporary style of the clarinet in an improvised setting. And I had the great opportunity of working in high school as well. One of my big mentors was Donald Harrison Jr. I was part of the Tipitina's internship program. And a big thing for him was teaching us responsibility of an artist to learn what came before and really master as best as we can. It's an ongoing, lifelong process of learning these people before us and using them as a catapult into modernism and into developing our own language. It doesn't come from nowhere. It comes from real places.
Among those real places, the Crescent City clubs Benjamin frequented to catch new work from top internationally known local artists.
I grew up listening to, Terrence Blanchard's E Collective,
Oh, yeah.
and he started the E Collective band when I was first getting into music.
Mm.
And I joined Noka, and I have gotten to see his project, every album live through that project.
Oh, wow.
And people like him, Christian Scott, now Tunde, and Nicholas Payton. I was able to see Nicholas Payton almost weekly at Prime Example for years. And watching these more modern groups from New Orleans that are on international stages perform music, it gave me permission in a way to redefine what I thought New Orleans music was because their music is rooted. And I think that that's like the commonplace between all of New Orleans musicians is this need and responsibility for preserving the music and perpetuating it. So it was really special to be able to see acts like this. And it gave me a vernacular to, in high school, begin building these worlds that I'm now exploring. Composition was always something that I was very interested in.
And deepened his understanding of through study at the Berklee School of Music in Boston, where Benjamin Cousins earned his bachelor's degree, followed by graduate studies and a master's degree at Temple University in Philadelphia. It was during those extended years of study, from NOCA to Temple, that Cousins met most of the players who joined him on his just out inaugural recording, What We Dream It to Be.
I've known everyone in the band for a long time. Brian Richburg Jr., our drummer, I grew up with Brian at NOCO. We went through all the programs together. And I've been very lucky that I have never had to call another drummer. Brian went on to Berklee with me. And then after Berklee, I moved to Philly and we stayed in the Northeast together. And I still call him Brian for everything if he's available. He's a very busy person. He has a great project himself, New Legacy. That is a very great project. The bass player and the guitarist, Daniel Wenshaw and Matt Sewell, I've known them since high school, just through summer camp programs. I met Matt Sewell at Skidmore Jazz Camp, in 2014. And he was one of these musicians that came in having proficiency and he was developing his sound already. And he was always someone, his guitar sound was something that I pictured coming out again of this Terrence Blanchard thing, this doubling of this lead electric guitar. So
Right.
I was always drawn to Matt's playing, and we became really good friends. And he also went to Berkeley with me. Dan Wenshaw, the bass player, he was from Boston. He did the Boston City Music Programming. So I met him through the 5 week program. He was always this creative artist type that it didn't matter kind of what he was playing. He just added a level of artistry that was authentic. So and Matt and Dan, I played in New York with a lot in trio settings. So I knew that I was going to call on them when it came time for the album. And then again, Brian was undeniable. Our piano player, Wilfie went to Berkeley while I was at Berkeley, Wilfie Williams, but I never met him at Berkeley.
Hmm.
I heard about him, and I think he heard the same from what I've gathered. But I actually had a local New Orleans piano player that was supposed to be on the album originally that ended up having some medical issues. And Wilfie was able to step in the final hour, which was very special. And he learned all of this music the 48 hours before
Wow.
the session. And this is not easy music. I need to write easier music for myself next time. But but
One lesson you take out of this.
yeah, one lesson I take is maybe
Yeah.
let's just stick with one chord. But
Well, you
but
can
he
do a
learned
lot with one, right?
yes, I love brass band music for that reason.
Yeah.
We stick to a couple chords and we can go all night. But Wilfie came in and really didn't only execute, but created some truly special moments on the album that I really like.
Benjamin Cousins also called on singer Robbie Pate to add his voice to one of the 8 Cousins originals that comprise What We Dream It to Be, which came out back in January of this year. The opening tune on What We Dream It to Be is Inner Voices.
I originally wrote that song to kind of personify this idea of like we have one thought that's in our head that is what is truth. And then we have that second thought that comes in and is always questioning, correcting, and challenging what we think is real. And the melody really personifies this double thoughts going on and them coming together.
Vocalist Robbie Pate joins in the What We Dream It to Be fun on Progress in Repetition.
I had a bunch of compositions. I began refining the work and was like, how can I get this under 50 minutes? How can I get this message across without deterring from its impact? And I needed a song that felt lighter, that had a human voice. And I called on my friend Robbie Pate, that's from Baltimore. He was the perfect person. And for me, like, this is the radio song off the album. It really does it feels uplifting. It's a perfect bass solo from our bassist Dan Wenshaw, and it just feels good.
One of 2 singles now streaming from What We Dream It to Be is Waiting on Tomorrows.
It's two-sided for me. Originally, my intent behind it was one of the first songs I wrote off the project. And I was frustrated at the time of not being able to go out and experience the most important part of music for me, this communal aspect. I think I wrote that song out of just that urgency of, okay, when this opens up, it's go time.